Hello, and welcome back to Nobody Told Me This, the channel where we lift the veil on corporate everything and make it available to everyone. The stress inducing concept of giving feedback. Why does it so often strike panic in the hearts of leaders, managers, coworkers, family, friends, strangers everywhere? Except for maybe on the internet, where many people don't seem to care what they say and to whom they say it or how they say it. According to leadership experts James Kouzis and Barry Posner, it's because feedback, I'll quote them, strikes at a tension between two basic human needs: the need to learn and grow versus being accepted just the way you are. So I'll repeat that. The reason people fear feedback so much is because it strikes at a tension between two basic human needs: the need to learn and grow versus being accepted just the way you are. And the tension that exists here can result in any suggestion, no matter how harmless the suggestion, resulting in the receiver feeling anxious, attacked, angry, or even threatened, among, other things. Because giving feedback is such a tricky situation, it's important to follow a few guidelines in order to make the process as painless as possible. And I'll be going through those guidelines in this video. So let's get started. Tip number 1, do not wait too long to give feedback. We often want to put off conversations dealing with performance feedback, but avoiding these conversations often causes more harm than good. By avoiding the tough conversations, you are preventing the receiver of the feedback from attempting to correct a potential shortcoming or error. And this can cause small issues to grow into larger issues over time, which makes the situation worse instead of better. Also, as time passes, memories fade. It's more difficult to recall situations and behaviors accurately the more time that passes, which then reduces the effectiveness of the feedback, as well as the receiver's willingness and ability to change their problem behaviors. Lastly, the more time that passes, the more likely your receiver will be caught off guard by your feedback. Like, imagine how surprised you would be if someone brought up something you did 3 months ago and told you now that it was a problem. Wouldn't your reaction be along the lines of, like, well, why didn't you say something 3 months ago then? If you wouldn't want this done to you, don't do it to others. Golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. You'll set yourself, your team, your friends, your family, your community, everyone up for success if you give timely feedback. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, be prepared for the conversation. One of the worst things you can do is go into a feedback conversation unprepared and thinking you'll just wing it. This is especially true if you are going to be giving any critical or negative feedback. In these situations, it is more helpful if you can provide specific examples of where a person is falling short of expectations. Something like, we've had 3 team meetings this month where we noticed your absence, versus just telling them that they're not meeting expectations. The specificity of the feedback is what gives the receiver the opportunity to truly understand where they're missing the mark, and it provides them with the chance to respond to the feedback. When you're providing critical feedback, you should also be prepared to offer some guidance as to how the person might improve. Hitting them with a criticism and leaving them to figure it out on their own is a surefire way to leave an employee feeling like they're floundering. In addition, feedback conversations should include highlights of where a person is performing well. There's an outdated recommendation, often referred to as the sandwich method, which says that you should give negative feedback sandwiched between 2 compliments. Like I said, this is outdated advice. And if this is your current MO for giving feedback, you should really try to change it up. What the sandwich method does, especially once your team picks up on it, is it puts them on edge anytime you give them a compliment. And that happens for two reasons. One, they are going to start to expect that that initial compliment is going to be followed by a criticism. And two, it lessens the value of the compliment that follows the criticism because they're more focused on the criticism instead of the compliment. You should also be prepared to give specifics when you're giving positive feedback. Saying something like, I was impressed with your presentation last Tuesday. The data you provided was extremely thorough, is much more effective than saying, great job, just keep doing what you're doing. Being prepared with guidance and specific examples will enhance the feedback conversation, as well as help to ensure that your employees understand where they're struggling, where they're performing well, and what they can do in order to improve even further. So tip number 2, be prepared, don't wing it. Tip number 3, don't make it personal. Feedback conversations are difficult enough without making the feedback personal. You really need to take care not to use an accusatory tone when providing feedback. And whenever possible, try to avoid statements that start with you. For example, you're not getting your work done can be rephrased as, it seems like there might be some delays in the work getting done on time. What about the work seems to be the greatest issue right now? This rephrasing makes the issue about the work, not about the person doing the work. And there are going to be hardliners that say this is babying the employee and not forcing them to take responsibility. And if that's what you want to believe, fine. But I'm here to tell you that what I'm describing here is more effective in the long term than blame and shame. Do with that what you will. I would say I don't care, but I do care, because if you're blaming and shaming, you're really doing yourself and your employees a disservice. Anyway, rephrasing the conversation to be about the work or the task and not the person reduces the feeling that the leader and the employee are on opposite teams. If you make it about the work, the employee and the manager stay on the same team. It's not me versus you, but instead it's us versus the problem. And this kind of positioning leads to better results, improved performance, and like a higher degree of information sharing between you as the leader and the employee. You, as the feedback giver, may actually uncover an unknown issue that was leading to the employee's performance issue that can very easily be fixed. I've mentioned in other videos, problems aren't always people problems. They're often system problems. So yeah, tip number 3, don't make it personal. Tip number 4, ask questions. A feedback session should not just consist of the person giving the feedback doing all the talking. It should be a conversation. There should be curiosity involved, and the receiver of the feedback should have an opportunity to say their piece. If you want to find out the reasons why a person isn't meeting performance expectations, you have to ask them about what's going on. We all know about the open-ended questions that start with who, what, when, where, why, and how. And these questions can be difficult for people to ask sometimes. And often this is due to the fact that we don't ask open-ended questions a lot. We tend to ask a lot of closed-ended questions or leading questions, which are questions where our phrasing is leading a person to respond in a certain way. One way to rephrase the open-ended questions is to not make them questions at all. And this can especially be helpful for why questions, which can often come across as like being challenging, and it can lead people to become defensive. For example, instead of asking someone, why did you say that to them? You can say, tell me more about the conversation you had. It invites the same information in response, but it's a less threatening and more genuinely curious way of asking the question. Phrasing can go a long way when it comes to asking open-ended questions. And also, you have to take care not to respond to your employees' answers with judgment. You asked them a question, they answered it. And now you have to move forward with the discussion in an even-keeled, non-judgmental fashion, or you will shut down the openness you were just starting to gain. This is not easy, and it takes a lot of practice. If you'd like to work on your ability to listen and listen without judgment, I highly recommend picking up a copy of this book. It's Madeline Burley Allen's teaching guide called Listening, the Forgotten Skill. It is filled with self-assessments, activities, and general information that can help you improve your listening skills and emotional regulation in difficult conversations. If you are in a position to provide feedback, or if you ever listen to anyone ever, you would likely be well served by reading through this text. I'll put the information about this text in the video notes if you're interested in potentially buying it. So tip number 4, ask questions. Tip number 5, create an improvement action plan. As I mentioned in tip number 2, it is important to be prepared to provide guidance to the person receiving the feedback. Feedback without guidance for improvement leaves the employee in an unknown space where they have no indication on how to improve, what to prioritize, and if or how their improvement is even going to be measured. To put it bluntly, if you provide feedback and do not also provide guidance, you are setting your employee up for failure. And if they do fail, some of that blame will fall squarely on you. That's it. That's true. At the end of your feedback conversation, review the areas for improvement, create a plan that includes specific steps and actions that the employee can take, and set up recurring check-ins so you can work together on their progress. For example, if an employee doesn't respond to emails, maybe you set a goal that they have to respond to each email within 48 hours. That is a measurable goal and it can be tracked. When you have your check-in meeting, then you can discuss what percentage of emails are being handled within the identified time period, where issues are still being experienced, and even adjust the target if necessary. A behavior doesn't become a habit overnight. People need to work at things in order to get used to them so that they become the new default behavior. You have to give your employee the time to adjust, and you have to be willing to adjust the goals accordingly. So tip number 5, and that's the final tip is to create an improvement action plan. So in conclusion, A, read Listening, the Forgotten Skill by Madeline Burley Allen. 2, when giving effective feedback, you should be focusing on remedies, not faults. And that's the entire point of this video. Giving valuable feedback requires effort on the part of the feedback giver and the feedback receiver. If one of the two parties involved in the feedback does not cooperate, then the feedback will be ineffective. Prepare yourself for any feedback conversation. Approach it from the angle of helping your employee as opposed to attacking them, and be there to help them move forward and grow. Being a leader and giving feedback is not easy, but you can make it easier by conducting your feedback sessions in a manner reflective of someone who values their team members and wishes them long-term success. Your team's success is also your success. So if you found this content to be of value, like, subscribe, comment, and share it with others. It's all appreciated. And I'll see you in the next video where I talk about return to office mandates and their association with narcissistic leaders. You definitely won't want to miss that. Thanks. Bye.